What's going on? My name's Jesse and this is my PA assignment. Through the data I've collected and through the experience of the game of AFL firsthand, it is evident that the three energy systems that are being used are the ATP-PC system, the anaerobic glycolysis system, which is the lactic acid system, and the aerobic system. Through knowledge and research about these systems, it is evident that I'm a mostly effective player for AFL. Through physical activity, our bodies have three different energy systems to choose from depending on the task that is to be performed. These include the ATP-PC, the anaerobic glycolysis, which is the lactic acid, and the aerobic, as I said before. And in AFL specifically, all of these energy systems are used at different times. The ATP-PC system is used for short explosive bursts of energy based off chemical reactions that the body uses for a short time. This burst of energy doesn't last very long, which is usually between 5 to 15 seconds, as it uses up energy very fast due to its chemical reaction, and is seen in AFL when the sportsman is performing activities such as a contested catch with a run-up, a short sprint up the sideline, and etc. When the system becomes to about 40% to 50% depleted, the anaerobic glycolysis system takes over. Thanks AFLcommunityclub.com.au. The anaerobic glycolysis system is activated when a moderately intense activity is performed and is used for a longer time than ATP-PC. This system relies on the production of lactic acid, which breaks down chemicals without oxygen to produce glycogen. This system complements the ATP-PC and crosses over with it once the energy store is running out. This system tends to last up to about 2 to 3 minutes. Once the lactic acid system accumulation is depleted, the body now switches over to the aerobic system. Thanks AFLcommunityclub.com.au. The aerobic is used once all other energy systems has been used to an insufficient level and is a very consistent long energy source. It supplies 40 to 50 times more energy than both of the other energy sources combined, but at a slower, more relaxed rate. This system is the only one that uses a substantial amount of oxygen to keep the energy levels optimal and has a much more complex chemical reaction than the others. It also breaks down carbohydrates rather than fats, but they require more oxygen. Thanks Fitness19.com. Heart rate zones. Heart rate training zones are calculated by taking into consideration your maximum heart rate and your resting heart rate. Within each training zone, subtle psychological effects take place to enhance your fitness. These zones include the energy efficient or recovery zone, the aerobic zone, the anaerobic zone, and the red line zone. Training with the energy efficient or recovery zone uses basic endurance and aerobic capability with quick recovery time and never goes over 70% effort when performing a task. Training with the aerobic zone will develop and primarily use the cardiovascular system. The body's ability to transport oxygen to the working muscles is present with this zone, and as you become fitter and stronger, this zone will make you be able to go for a long. Training the anaerobic zone uses the lactic acid system, relies on this chemical to accumulate it to the muscles in need. In this zone, the amount of fat being utilized is the main source of energy and is greatly reduced, and glycogen stored in the muscles is predominantly used. And finally, the red line zone. Training this zone will only last for a very short amount of time and uses the ATP-PC system to create the burst of energy to perform the action. So this is the data for my heart rate zones I just mentioned. In the energy efficient zone, or 60 to 70%, my heart rate is 118.5 to 138.25. In the aerobic zone, mine's 138.25 to 158 BPM. In the anaerobic zone, it's 158 to 177.75. And in the red line zone, it's 177.75 to 197.5. Big ups brianmac.co.uk for, helping me with all that information. Let's analyze some data. So my data clearly uses all three of the energy systems and they all appear at different times. It is clear to see when the ATP-PC system is in use to the data, as it shows a fast jolt of heart rate and the speed spikes as well compared to most of the data. Examples in AFL would be things such as running, then leap for the ball, a quick jolt down the sideline, and a big boot downfield.
And it also crosses the red line zone, which is a good indicator that it's ATP-PC.
When the anaerobic/lactic acid system is in use, the heart rate of the player, which is me, will have a steady incline for a brief period of time, which is longer than the ATC but shorter than the aerobic. Then it will steady out again to a consistent pattern when the system is depleted. Examples in AFL would include outrunning opposition when getting chased, going for a solo run to try and break the line, and pretty much any fast movement that is longer than 10 to 15 seconds. Also is a good indicator that it's currently in the middle zone, and it's above 140 BPM. When the aerobic zone is in use, the data shows a steady pace with the occasional drop-offs or inclines depending on how hard the system is working. The aerobic zone works around 60 to 70% and stays under the threshold of 140 BPM. Due to this system being the first system that is being used, it is the one that the players use whilst maintaining a steady pace but not doing anything explosive, and gradually builds up to the lactic acid and the ATP-PC system. In AFL, this can include jogging, being in a different position to where the ball is, or pretty much anything that's constant and steady, even your heart rate going down. Sheesh, that was a lot of words. I'm so sorry for how boring that was. Alright, we're getting serious. My overall effectiveness for a player can be indicated by this data and shows that for the first period my heart rate was low, showing that I was not performing at a high intensity of activities like jumps, sprints, and kicks, but it picks up later. This shows my effectiveness came towards the second half as my heart rate is constantly high and performing well, indicating that the high intensity acts I was doing. My position was midfield, and this specific role is supposed to be running and is the midst of action all the time, and is indicated by data I was not doing that for the first half. And although I picked up my game in the second, it still wasn't the best. This shows I'm not the ideal player for my position, but I was working hard most of the time, but I still think I was an effective player. I believe that the predominant energy system that was in use was the lactic acid system. Although it was close with the aerobic systems in terms of use, the data shows me starting aerobically, and then as I get more into the game, my heart rate skyrockets and I have constantly bursts of energy whilst playing the game. As the lactic system was on recovery time, the aerobic system would take over, but the data indicates a constant burst showing as soon as I was recovered enough I would use it. And I played with high intensity for the second period of the game, which is longer than the first. My recommendations are based on the consensus that I need to stay at a consistent level of effort and maintain a solid heart rate through the whole game, as well as able to do this. This will better enhance my gameplay and hence benefit my ability as a team player. To better enhance the duration of the ATTPC system, training methods include high intensity, such as sprints and hard running or power training. Extremely hard cardio and weights go hand in hand in making the ATTPC system longer and more explosive. This can include heavy deadlifts, push jerks, and etc. I do not believe I used enough of it in my data, and when it wasn't for as long or as extreme as I hoped. In order for my heart rate to stay consistent throughout the whole game, a high level of cardio ability, which is the aerobic is needed for the position I'd like to play, is needed. Therefore, my data keeps dipping and I do not have the same heart rate throughout the whole game and not the same speed. I am lucky in this regard as cardio is easy to build up and just takes a bit of effort. Activities to do this include aerobic exercises like jogging and simple cardio machines like rowing and swimming. This also helps with the aerobic system for the game too. To improve my effectiveness to the best level I can be at, I also need to incorporate a technical skill that directly relates to AFL. The biggest struggle with my AFL ability is the fact that I'm not comfortable yet where I can bounce the ball whilst fully running hard. This slows down my pace and makes me less effective to my team as I run the risk of losing the ball. Skill developing exercises to improve this include practicing this skill at a slower rate by myself and basic ball control drills like passing it. In conclusion, my effectiveness as a player comes down to how well I played as a teammate, how hard I was working, and when I was working each energy system. I achieved max heart rate in the data of 197.5, meaning I worked to my full potential even though I wasn't always going hard. Overall, it was present I was effective at times, but through the recommendations and experience of the sport, I will be able to become as efficient as I possibly can be. Relaxed rate. This system is much more complex. Training the lactic acid system to improve my effectiveness to the best level relies on the chemical as it shows a fast jolt of heart rate and the speed